All right.
Oh, jeez, what are you doing?
Oh, since we're doing like game mechanisms, I'll be a mechanic, you know, and have tools.
Yeah, we're doing mechanics, but that's a jigsaw. What is your car made out of wood?
Yeah, I mean, probably parts of it, right? Some parts of cars are made of wood, right?
Maybe the steering wheel?
Probably the steering wheels are made of wood. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
We are the Brothers Murph, and despite cars probably not being made of wood, we're here to talk about game mechanisms that we really love.
These are our favorite kind of like main mechanisms. We were kind of talking about there's a lot of like mechanisms that are like generally smaller, but they were talking about ones that are like, we would say like, this is a worker placement game. It's usually like the main big mechanic in a game.
What's the first thing you think of when you think of this? What do you do in this game?
Yeah, exactly. This is our top 10 game mechanisms. Down in the comment, put your favorite mechanic. What do you like? Do you like worker placement, engine building? But nonetheless, let's get into our top 10. All right, so our 10th favorite mechanic is trick taking. Trick taking is a very popular mechanic down for like things like hearts and spades, like classic card games. And now there's tons and tons and tons of trick-taking games. So a couple of our favorites are the Crew. We absolutely love the Crew. We love the kind of idea of like co-op trick-taking games in general. We really like Fox in the Forest and Fox in the Forest Duet, which are both two-player trick-taking games. And speaking of two-player trick-taking games that we really like, we both really like the game Claim, where you are doing trick-taking, but you have a bunch of different factions, and all the different factions work different ways. It's really, really cool. But trick-taking is one of those like really classic genres, really classic mechanics that's been around for a long time. And like really the classics like Hearts and Spades are still the biggest trick-taking games on the planet because you just play the deck of cards and people play it for like literally generations. And so trick-taking is great. It's not our favorite mechanic because we didn't really grow up with it, but we still really, really love it. And that's trick-taking, our number 10.
So our number 9 are games that involve programming. Usually this means programming movement. There's famously Robo Rally, Mechs vs. Minions, Quirky Circus. These are some games that we enjoy that use programming. So this usually means that you're going to play some cards out into a row, and then one at a time you'll kind of reveal what your program is and then execute those movements. Usually what's kind of fun in these games is what you have planned might get interrupted in some way, and so now turning left and then moving forward is really not the best idea, but that's the program you built. So you have to carry it out and move through it and then sort of figure out how to fix the problems that just happened. So these are games that we think are really interesting. You can do it cooperatively, you can do it competitively and try to mess it with each other. There's lots of different ways to work with it, and we just find it to be a really fun puzzle. I don't think either of us are very great at programming games, but they're ones that we really always enjoy trying to mess with. So two ones that we really like of that are Mechs vs. Minions, which is a big old production, and you're going and fighting these little things, and you have to kind of get messed up, and they corrupt your program and stuff like that. Then Quirky Circus, where a bunch of animal robots, and you're going around doing different tasks based on the type of robot you use. It's kind of like a little mini campaign. Both very great, awesome programming games. That's our number 9.
Number 8 is route building. Now, route building is kind of a vague one, but generally like most train games are games where you're kind of having to build some kind of route from like point A to point B. So kind of a classic route building game that we do really enjoy is something like Ticket to Ride, right? Ticket to Ride, specifically Ticket to Ride Nordic countries is our favorite Ticket to Ride. One, because like our whole family is from Norway. And then two, it's just we really love the map of the Scandinavian countries, and it's also a 2 to 3 player game with Ticket to Ride, which we really like. But in this game, you are building train routes. You have some kind of ticket, and you need to build a route from point A to point B, from like Oslo to Helsinki over in Finland. And so you basically have to build a route. And we do enjoy route building, especially when you can kind of like get in each other's ways. And so you're constantly trying to find the shortest route that costs maybe like the least amount of resources, the least amount of money, while also trying to circumvent other people's routes or maybe use their routes depending on the game. Route building is just, it's really cool, and it just works really well to kind of make networks. Making networks, I think, is a satisfying thing to do, and a lot of games harness that, and it just works really, really well. And also train games are huge because people like trains, and trains are all about routes, right? And so we really, really enjoy route building. It's our number 8.
So number 7 are games that involve rondels. Now rondel is just a shorthand way to say kind of games where you work in some sort of loop and you kind of go around and around and around. These games, I think, create really interesting opportunities where you're trying to sort of combo like one action and kind of go up to the next one, work the next one before you ultimately kind of reset and come back to point A in the rondel. Famously, games that we enjoy this are Great Western Trail. You kind of are going up and you're going through this trail to Kansas City to sell off cattle and stuff, and you start back where you began and you're running cattle once again, stopping off at various buildings to activate them, and that might change throughout the game which buildings are available for you to use. Another game that we really enjoy is Red Cathedral, where you're actually trying to kind of get a bunch of these dice that are all simultaneously moving around this rondel into the same spot so you can get better versions of actions. But the value of the dice dictates how far they have to move. So you kind of are trying to work out the puzzle that way. Those are 2 rondel games we like. I think you can always create really interesting things with how and when you get to certain points within this loop. And they're ones that we like to enjoy. That's rondels.
Number 6 is one that doesn't show up too often, but that's simultaneous selection. Now, this is a thing where everyone at the same time will choose something. Now, there's usually some kind of card, maybe some kind of roll or some kind of order, and there's usually a downside to choosing the same thing as someone else. Some of our favorite games to do this is like Libertalia, where you're a bunch of pirates and you are choosing pirate roles like the captain or the governor's daughter or all these different ones, you know, the bosun or the cook or something like that. And you're all revealing them simultaneously, and all these cards have a different rank. And then you put those ranks, those cards in order on the ship, and that you get to grab treasure in order of rank. And it's a really cool thing. I enjoy simultaneous selection a lot. Another game we love that does simultaneous selection is a game called Coloma, where you are choosing essentially what action you're gonna do, and everyone's choosing what action they're gonna do at the same time. Now the thing is, if 2 people choose the same action, they get essentially a lesser version of that action. If you're the only one who chose an action, you get like the boom action, which is like the extra one. We also love a game called Tales of Glory. It's absolutely great simultaneous selection game, and a game that we are always evangelizing, a game called Isra, which is a simultaneous selection game where, again, you're trying to go somewhere and you hope no one else goes the same place as you. We really enjoy simultaneous selection. It's a game with it causes a lot of tension without a lot of like combativeness, because you're kind of like, oh, you chose the same thing as me, but it's not like, screw you, I did this to mess you up, haha, I hate you. It's just kind of like a accidental getting in each other's way. It's kind of what it feels like, which we enjoy. So we really enjoy simultaneous selection games. That's our number 6.
Number 5's hard to not love. It's engine building. Who doesn't like to sort of get this whole big production supply chain going for themselves, and you get to produce more and more things and make stronger and stronger versions of actions? A lot of games use engine building. I feel like in the last number of years, it's sort of the premier thing that gets used to really fuel a game. But it's really fun to start with something that is fairly simple. You know, you have limited actions you can do. There's some stuff that's kind of cool, and then through time you build up a stronger and stronger literal engine for yourself that fuels the production or whatever it is you're trying to do. Game that we really love for this is, of course, like terraforming Mars. You can start producing more and more heat and plant material and stuff to literally terraform a planet. It's hard to beat. You feel very accomplished when you play engine building games, which is why we always kind of are intrigued and drawn into them. Because even if I lose, I still feel like I did something. I built something, and you can see that right there with that cool engine that I did. So that is engine building, our number 5.
Our number 4 favorite mechanic is cooperative deduction, specifically cooperative deduction. We enjoy deduction games. There's a lot of different kind of deduction games, from like social deduction games, which are kind of like party games, to games like, say, like the exit games, or all these escape room games where you're solving riddles and solving puzzles, all this kind of stuff. But none of those are really our favorite. Our favorite is something that's been, I feel like there's more and more games that have been coming out with this, and that is cooperative deduction, where you are all working together to try to deduce something. And there's a couple games recently that really skyrocketed to some of our favorite games, and that's Paint the Roses, where you are in the kind of Alice in Wonderland universe, and you are building out the Queen of Hearts garden, but she has very specific ways she wants the whole thing to be built out, so everyone has these whims which show you how to build the Queen's garden, but you don't know each other's whims, and so you're basically putting out these tiles, and you're trying to, these tiles will kind of give you hints on what people's whims might be, and you have to then guess each other's whims and try to stay ahead of the Queen as she's coming by with an axe and trying to chop people's heads off. It's really, really fun. It's a game that it's a thing where if you're not necessarily as good, like I personally am not very good at deduction games, and so competitive deduction games I sometimes don't like that much because I'm not as good as some people, and so I just get destroyed. But in cooperative deduction games, it's just, I don't know, it just feels better. It feels more fun. It feels more satisfying to kind of work together to a goal, and I really, really like them. So cooperative deduction games like Paint the Roses or a new one, Decorum by Floodgate Games that we absolutely adore. Really, really love cooperative deduction. It's our number 4.
Number 3 is deck building / bag building. This is all about starting off with a hand of cards, a little bag of chits or whatever it might be that are usually pretty lame. They can like sort of buy you some stuff or like maybe do a little bit of something, but they're not necessarily the cards or the types of materials that you want. They're not very strong. And throughout the game, you're going to be buying more, in the case of deck building, cards. You're going to buy more and more cards. And as you run through your little deck of cards, you have to shuffle all that stuff you bought into a newly formed deck that you then get to start drawing from. So what we really enjoy with deck building and bag building games like Orleans or Quacks of Quedlinburg is you're really trying to mitigate the random chance of it all, because you're drawing random cards. You don't know what you're going to get. You're pulling random stuff out of a bag. You don't know what you're going to get. So you want to create a higher likelihood that you're going to draw or pull the stuff that you need to put together some really supremely cool actions. That's something that's always fun. It kind of feeds a push your luck feeling, but you get to mitigate that luck by having as much good stuff as you can get in your bag or your deck of cards to then draw from. So it's something that we really enjoy in games. We really love when it's mixed with other mechanisms in a game specifically. Deck building is one that we're always going to be intrigued by, and you see it in a lot of types of games these days. So that's number 3.
Number 2, if you know us at all, you know we absolutely love this, and that's worker placement, or we'll also throw in dice placement, because dice placement, worker placement aren't exactly the same thing, but they're similar enough where we'll kind of put them into one thing. But worker placement games is just, you know, Mike's favorite game is Feast for Odin. It's worker placement. My favorite game is Viticulture. It's worker placement. If it's a worker placement game, we're immediately interested in that game. And that is where you have usually a whole bunch of different actions on the board, but instead of having those actions yourself, they're kind of action spaces. And you take usually workers, usually little meeples, or workers could be dice, they could be a whole bunch of different things, and you choose to put them out onto the board, and you go like, I'm gonna put this here and then do this action. That's what worker placement is, and we find it really, really fun because kind of like we were talking about, I was talking about simultaneous selection creates a lot of tension. I like that. I enjoy the prioritizing that happens with worker placement, because if you have 10 different spaces and 4 different people who are all going to the same spaces, a lot of times when you go to a space, it blocks it for other people. So a lot of times it's about, I need to do this, 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 and this, and then how should I prioritize? What is the most crucial for me to do? Because I need to make sure I do that first so I get that spot so no one else can get it. I really enjoy that kind of strategy and that kind of tension that comes about with that kind of game. I really, really enjoy that in worker placement. And it's one of those mechanics that's so varied. You can create so many different kinds of games, so many different kinds of themes, so many, just everything can work in that kind of mechanic. And I really, really like worker placement. It's our number 2.
So number 1 is tough. It's tough to choose 1 and 2, but tile placement for us gets the edge just a little bit above worker placement because it's just always fun. There's something fun about tableau building. You build out something in front of you. You get that sense of accomplishment of creating something as you go. A lot of games use tile placement in various different ways. There's polyomino tiles. There's kind of square tiles that you build out in a more standard tableau, and maybe what's next to a certain tile matters. There's just so many games, going back to like Carcassonne for us, which is like so cool to start a game where on the table you have one little tile. and that's the beginning of your board. But by the end of the game, you have this sprawling display in front of you, and every game you play, it's going to be completely different. So tile laying to us just is this kind of fun sandbox to play in. A lot of games will use other mechanisms and stuff to fuel ultimately tile placement, and for us, it's the best when tile placement is energized and fueled by other mechanisms, like our favorite game, Feast for Odin, uses worker placement to ultimately do tile placement. So yes, tile placement is so fun. We're always going to want to listen to the next polyomino tile puzzly game. It's satisfying. It just scratches certain itches in our brain that we really love. So number 1, favorite mechanism, tile building, tile placement. If I could build tiles, then we'd be onto something.
So that was our top 10 game mechanisms, mechanics, whatever you want to say.
However you say it.
Jigsaws aside, right?
Jigsaws aside.
Indeed.
That is just some of the things that we love. We love games. We have multiples of all of those types of games behind us.
We really love
We'll
them.
probably buy more in the future because we just enjoy those types of games.
Yeah, if you say like this is a worker placement game, we're immediately like, okay, continue on, please.
Say more
Please
now, please.
tell us more. Tell us more.
Keep it
So
going.
yeah, so down in the comments again, let us know your favorite game mechanism. Let us know what kind of top 10 you'd like to see us tackle next, whether it's like a mechanic like this or some other kind of list or just our favorite games. Let us know down in the comments below. I think that's it. Until next time, I'm Nick.
I'm Mike.
We're the Brothers Murph, and we'll see you later.
See you in the next top 10.